Welcome back to another episode of the Tiga Tactics podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Evan Perperis, and I'm joined by the co-founders of Tiga Tactics, Conrad Bui. Dr. Conrad, say hi.
Hello, everyone.
And Dr. Pat, I mean, not Pat, Doctor, just Patrick Vuong. I give you a promotion there.
I think you made my mother really proud. I, hey, I'm Asian, and the fact that I'm not a doctor, engineer, or lawyer, it means I'm an utter failure. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. What's up, guys?
Welcome back to the Tiga Tactics podcast. This is self-protection for civilians by civilians, except for me. I'm military background, but since you're a bunch of martial arts nerds, MANs, we're going to be talking about self-protection, self-defense, and kind of all things in that realm, and touching on the martial arts world. So today's episode is a little different. We're going to be doing a Q&A episode. So we have a private Facebook group for Team Tiga Tactics. If anyone wants to get into that group, you can check out the links below. You can sign up for one of the courses, and when you sign up for one of the online courses or you attend one of the seminars, essentially you'll get access into that Tiga Tactics Facebook group. And from there, you can interact with the rest of the team, rest of the community, ask questions, get good answers, not only from the founders here, but the depth of knowledge of martial arts in that group is really good, and it's small enough where you don't get like crazy answers. But for this episode, we wanted to do something different, so we just posted in there. Ask us questions. We'll answer them on air and run through them from top to bottom. All right, we're just gonna jump right into it with the first question, and we'll see how many we get through. We got about 6 or so questions, broken between 4 people, and we'll see if we can get through them all. All right, so we'll start off with the first questions from Ben Messer. He gets this one sometimes from female friends. Is it possible to defend yourself without intending to harm your attacker? And what if you don't want to? Let's start there. Is it possible to defend yourself without intending to harm your attacker? Whoever wants to answer it first.
Yeah, I'd say you can definitely. There are many ways. Bruce Lee said it best. The art of fighting without fighting. I think you have to think about. I don't want to be that guy who's it's all about mindset, but you really have to think about personal protection as opposed to self-defense. Because to me, when you say self-defense, you're kind of a step behind already. That means someone's already attacking you and you're trying to defend yourself. But if you think about it in terms of personal protection, there's other avenues that you can seek before getting hands-on with somebody. And, verbal judo is a big one. Understanding how people may react to your tone of voice and how you may want to escalate that in some circumstances, or lower your tone or make it more friendly. So there's different ways to disarm people without literally taking their arm and whipping a weapon out of their hand. You know what I mean? I'm talking more like broadly speaking. Conrad, how do you feel about that?
Oh my gosh, we could go on for hours with this. Let me just start with saying this: violence is rarely the answer. It's rarely the answer. But unfortunately, when it is the answer, it's the only answer. That being said, get back to that first sentence. It's rarely the answer, and as we've taught in our seminars, if you have to use violence, you effed up a long time ago. So what happened there? Yeah, we've got what Patrick said, our mindset, avoiding the laws of stupid. Patrick, you want to go over that laws of stupid? That's probably a simple one that'll prevent many of these situations from happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't break the laws of stupid. Which means don't do stupid things with stupid people at stupid times in stupid places. You could probably break one of those rules. Let's say I'm doing something stupid, like nowadays it's looking at my phone in public. But if you're looking at your phone in public at like 2 a.m. in a back alley somewhere, all your friends are drunk and not helping you at all, that's pretty stupid. So don't break the laws of stupid.
Right. And or back to what Patrick said, we don't want to say this is a mindset thing. But unfortunately, it is a mindset thing, and like we have that pyramid of personal protection. We have mindset, skill set, tool set. Mindset is at the bottom there, and mindset is the tool. It's going to be the strategy and tactics that allow you to defend yourself without resorting to violence, without intending to hurt anybody. In the fact that if you live a defensive lifestyle, you can avoid all this trouble, all this hassle in the first place. So one of our first mindset is simply to stay alert, and I believe staying alert, we say that, and when we go to self-defense classes, we hear that, situational awareness, stay alert. It's not easy. It's not easy. That's why there's been such a big proliferation and a lot of interest lately in mindfulness training. Sometimes I'm doing things and I just switch on autopilot, those atomic habits from that book. You're just switching on autopilot, and I'm just going through life. And sometimes I walk into a room and I'm thinking, I know I was going to get something. What was it? It's that lack of mindfulness. Or maybe I drove home and I missed my exit. I'm like, what? There goes that lack of mindfulness, that lack of awareness. So I believe proper mindfulness training, proper awareness training, a big step towards being able to defend yourself without resorting to violence, without resorting to wanting to hurt anybody. Just having that lifestyle where you're never in that situation in the first place.
Yeah, I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but social aggression versus asocial violence, and if we're in a situation where it's asocial violence, someone is trying to kill, rape, abduct you, whatever it is, right? Like I don't think it's really possible, like you were saying, to like if violence is the answer there, then it becomes very hard to properly defend yourself without doing some sort of serious damage to them or hurting them. If you're in a social aggression model, people are getting in arguments at bars, and your people are agreeing to fight. That's completely different. And you can, like you were saying, verbal judo, de-escalation, walking away, letting your ego take a hit, all those things. Not being at the bar in the first place, not being at that bad place, bad time. Again, that would be the primary way to avoid hurting your attacker. But I would say, as someone who's trained in striking arts, blade arts, and then grappling arts, for me, knowing some Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I think if I couldn't de-escalate the situation, I tried walking away and I did all the things, I think I would do in that situation, and someone still like kind of jumped me per se in a social aggression model. I do think with grappling experience, I'm much more capable of subduing someone without having to physically hurt them. Because if I only train striking, then I only know punches to the face and kicks to the groin and eye gouges. Versus grappling, I feel like I can control someone, and maybe try to de-escalate the situation again if I believe it's still in that like social aggression model, if it's not in that asocial violence type of model.
So, right. So
I don't know. You're the black belt, Conrad, and you've got some Aikido background. So I don't know if you got any input there for those.
So there's the avoidance, right? We want to avoid things. Then there's the awareness. That awareness will help us avoid things even better. And then there's the de-escalation, the verbal judo we talked about. There's also just straight running and getting out of dodge as well too. That's always a great option. But again, there may be some times where maybe we're jumped or somehow we have to resort to physical violence. And that just depends. I don't. There's never a one size fits all. That depends. How big are you? How big is your attacker? How many attackers are there? Is there a weapon involved? Things can change very quickly depending on those variables. A small female, even if she's really good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's going to be a heck of a day for her to take down a 200-pound guy and control him. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I've seen it happen. We're talking world champions here, but how many of those are walking around? lots of variables here. When there's violence, uh, man, there's just so many variables. So back to the size discrepancy. If you're a smaller person, you're gonna need a lot of skill to be able to control a bigger person without harming them. You're gonna just require a lot of skill. That's why bouncers are so big in general. They're gonna just use their size and mass and try to control that situation with their size, mass, and hopefully some skill. So the size, I mean, they say size doesn't matter. It matters a lot. So depending on your size, the smaller you are, the more skillful you have to be able to handle a situation without resorting to hurting that person. And so how is your skill level? I don't know. I mean, do you train every day? And also it depends on what art you train. Are you training Tai Chi? Well, I don't know how effective that is versus Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We know that's proven to be effective. As far as one-on-one in a controlled environment, it's very effective. And again, I say one-on-one in a controlled environment. Outside, it's uncontrolled. There might be weapons. There might be glass on the ground. There might be multiple attackers, and so there's just so many variables. That being said, it's always better to have more skill than less skill. So definitely being able to lean on your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or wrestling or grappling skills. Very important, very important. Unfortunately, that won't be the answer for everyone.
Yeah. Well, we always started going down like we can what if and hypothetical all day. Let's kind of move on to the second part of his question, which was what if you don't want to hurt the abusive partner who's attacking you? So maybe that's a little more specific and probably more one-on-one. And I think it can be answered male versus female, but also so in my experience being in the military, most of the abusive spouse cases I dealt with soldiers, it was actually the female attacking the male and not the other way around, which I think was just kind of interesting. And just and I had to deal with like the repercussions of essentially the male, the strong army guy being like, well, I'm gonna like the one I'm thinking specifically, he grabbed his daughter and locked himself in the bathroom and then called the police because
Wow.
because his female spouse was irate and angry and like throwing things. He was like, well, yeah, and still even when the police showed up, they still were like, they still like I think the policy at least on the base was like, all right, we always arrest the male, like period. Like the male's the one that called the police. He's like, I'm locked in the bathroom. It's like she's attacking me. Like that, I'm not the one that needs to be arrested right now. But they still there was some confusion. I remember like after the incident, I'm like, who was in trouble and etc. Because they hear domestic abuse and then they just assume it's the male.
Wow.
Anyway,
so were they both military?
Male was military, female was non-military, just a spouse. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That actually something similar happened to somebody who's close to me, and he unfortunately got arrested, and it wasn't his fault. And I think everything he did was defensive. He didn't strike. He didn't punch, kick, knee. He still got arrested. So
Yeah.
This is a good question in that circumstance, because there is a gender bias when it comes to these, especially with cancel culture and all that stuff, and that Me Too movement. These are things that we have to be aware of as big issues in society. And if I see this a lot when I teach women's self-defense, and usually in that situation, I'm teaching a classroom full of women, and it's reversed. They have a husband or a boyfriend who's abusive to them, and my general advice is just leave. I know that's really tough. It's easy for me to say and tough for them to do because relationships are complicated, and there's a whole psychological issue. There's also financial issues and all those things. So how can you defend yourself without hurting an abusive partner? And my answer is always leave. You physically leave. Like just the most important part is to not be there to protect yourself. You know, if you are not there to be punched, kicked, shot, stabbed, then that's huge, because having to deal with it when they're in a rage is difficult. So I think this is more of an emotional, psychological answer than anything else, is recognizing toxic behavior, and it could be male or female, right? And removing yourself from that equation immediately. A lot of time, usually it's the other way around. It's abuse of male, and the female's the victim.
Yeah, that's the more common. That's the more common one.
I'm not going to say all the time, but a lot of times it can end up in the female victim being beaten or killed. And it starts incrementally. You know, I've done quite a bit of research on this. I've taught a lot of women's self-defense courses. It's always incremental. Nobody ever goes on a date, gets slapped right away. It's always, you know, a little bit of verbal abuse.
Verbal, yeah.
First, it's actually manipulation, and then it's putting them down, and then it's verbal abuse, and then it gets to grabbing and pushing, and then from there it gets to punching and striking, getting hit over the head with things, and eventually stabbed and shot. So they are incremental, and it's important to recognize those behaviors and just remove yourself from the situation. That's the best way to answer it. Because if you're talking about technique, I think a lot of people who ask this question, they're looking for techniques. They're like, oh, can I do like an overhook?
And
then maybe press them against the wall, you know, like
eye wash, and then you know,
right. They're looking for physical techniques, but the physical techniques are not the answer.
Yeah, you're so far down the bad decision tree diagram. It's that's not what you're looking for. Side note, you mentioned kind of like that slippery slope of how the abuse starts. And I can't remember where I first heard this, but I just Googled it so I could get the actual number. But if the spouse has a history of choking their partner, according to this news article from 2021, there's a 750% more likely chance to be killed. So if your spouse is ever choking you, male or female, the percentage that they will eventually kill you increases by 750%, which is like a ludicrous. I mean, it's just a ludicrous statistic. So that is a late warning sign. But it is, you know, if you haven't woken up at that point like that, now it's time to cut sling load. And that's military term. That is, now it's time to leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
So back to the being able to defend yourself without intentionally trying to hurt somebody else. That's a tough one. That really is a hard one. There are arts out there like Aikido, and what we talk about, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where there's no striking involved. There's a lot of control aspects involved. The masters of those arts, you know, they spent decades perfecting their craft. We need to have a look at ourselves and realize, do I have those skills? And also, do I have the physical attributes to make these skills work? Because size does matter, you know, as much as we want to discount it in the martial arts, you know, and Yoda as well too. You know, size does matter even with good skill levels.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I always say physics always wins.
Yeah. I was training at a different Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym last week, and one of the higher belts I was rolling with tried to do like basic cross collar choke. I defended myself, and then he just kept putting pressure, like to the point where my own hand was crushing my jaw, and then I was like, well, I'm not gonna hurt my own jaw, so I moved my hand, and then he got the choke in. I was like, all right, well, you know, like, you just put enough pressure on me where I essentially gave him the submission, even though I defended it successfully for like a minute. It's like, all right. But yeah, he was just a larger opponent than me, and just kind of stuck to his guns for that minute. It's like, all right.
Yeah. But I do want to say that Conrad and I are working on a program that that's for healthcare workers, and you know, they're bound by oath not to hurt people. So a doctor or nurse can't slug the patient if they get violent. And so there are certain things that you can do to defend yourself, by the same time neutralize the threat. But again, that require, as Conrad said, that's going to require a lot of training, and in the healthcare situation, it requires a lot of teamwork.
Yes, yeah.
But that's contextual. We can't give them the techniques and tactics that we're showing healthcare workers to just a regular spouse, pairing, because it doesn't always apply in that way. So I think context and training matters, but obviously physics matters the most. So.
Yeah. I think we answered that one at least a decent amount. Without kind of, I feel like if we want to get deeper, we need like him on here to like just guide the discussion specifically. So let's keep moving. Let's, in the interest of time and covering other topics, let's jump into one of the other questions. So this one's from Michael Davis, and it said, "I've been wondering, what do you consider the minimum effective dose of training to keep your skills sharp? I know Conrad mentioned training his arts once a month, but what does training look like? Is it revisiting all the material, or is it more like working on the greatest hits?" So I think we'll punt that over to Conrad to answer.
All right. It is revisiting all the material. Like, for example, if I'm doing a Kung Fu system, I'll go through everything from the stance set, which is like the very basic set, all the way through all the forms, through all the weapons, at least once. So for me, I try to get to it at least once a month. Sometimes I'm able to get to it a little more often, depending on how busy I am. But at least once a month, I found that that's the minimum I need to keep from regressing too much. So it's tough. It's especially the more arts I learn, it just gets more and more. I was telling myself at one point, no more forms. But then I got into EIDO, which is all forms. And so, I just can't help it. Like what you said at the beginning, I'm a MAN martial arts nerd. And it's a drug. It's a drug. And so, yeah, the benefits of that, though, for me, I believe it helps to keep my brain sharp as I get older. It also, I use these reviews as active recovery, a way to heal my body. It's almost like swimming in the air. It's just such a healthy thing to do as well too.
I'm going to start banning these questions, because every time Conrad answers about how he reviews all of his forms, I feel bad about myself. I'm like, oh man, I haven't done form X, Y, and Z in months. And then I'm like, oh,
oh, they're so easy to forget.
Here. I'm falling behind.
They're very easy to forget, Evan. I mean, sometimes I'll have to look at a video, and I'll be going through a form, and all of a sudden, oh geez, is that the right move? And I have to go back and look at a video or something like that as well to make sure I'm doing it right. Excuse me. It's just really easy to forget. And on the plus side, though, again, I think for me, it's great for brain health.
I think that's an excellent point. The first part of the question was, what do you consider the minimum effective dose of training to keep your skills sharp? So we'll punt that over to Patrick first, and then have Conrad follow it up.
Sure. I think you first have to ask yourself the question of what's my goal of this training? Is it to simply protect myself in a real life attack, or is it to be a martial artist, or is it to be a combat sports athlete? And so once you have that answer, then once you have that question, then the answer will be different for each of those questions. So I would say if you're just focused on straight combatives, just protecting yourself and defending yourself on the street, then you'd want a minimum of 3 times a week, up to 6 times a week. And it doesn't have to be a lot in each session. So it can literally be 15 minutes 6 times a week. If you add that up, that's only 90 minutes a week. So you can really,
or even less, or even less.
Yeah,
or even less.
Yeah, or if you don't have 6 sessions in a week, you could do it in 3 and make it 30 minutes per session. If you want to kind of get a workout along with it too. But honestly, if you just do a little bit of review every so often, it will do wonders. For example, we talked about the EDC knife course in the previous podcast, and a huge portion of that program is how to draw your knife, because if you need to defend yourself with a knife but you can't get out of your pocket, then it's kind of useless to have that pocket to have that knife in the first place. So a huge emphasis on deploying the knife, and so a lot of your training could literally just be standing up, making some space, draw the knife out, boom, stop, and repeat for 5-10 minutes. So it doesn't have to be extensive if you're talking about self-defense, because the way that people attack on the street is actually pretty simple. The tough part is the unpredictability of when they're going to do it, but how they do it, we actually kind of know because we have surveillance footage, and Conrad and I have spent countless hours studying that. So if you're into combat sports, that's a whole nother ball game where the training's got to increase tremendously, because you're not going to make any gains if you're only going once a week, So that's your question. And then of course, if we're talking martial arts, being a martial arts man, a martial arts nerd, being a man, then obviously you'll have to train a lot more often, as Conrad said. Especially the more arts you train, the more you got to review.
Yeah, like you were saying, even if you just every time you go to leave the house, you do a couple of the toolkit strikes that's taught through Tiga Tactics. You draw your tool, right? Like when you actually sit down to train, that stuff's gonna be a lot fresher in your mind. It's gonna come back a lot easy. Slightly different, but when I talk about training for obstacle course racing and fitness, I always give 3 criteria that I list for people. So one, it's got to be specific. So whatever you're doing for training should mimic what you're doing for race, or in this case, like if I'm training for self-defense, right, it should mimic closer to that. Or if I'm training for combat sports, it should mimic that. So it should be specific is 1. 2 is progressive, right? So basically it gets harder as you get better, right? So it prevents plateauing. So for running, that's more volume or faster running. For martial arts, it might be more sets, it might be harder workouts, whatever it may be. And then the third one I list is enjoyable. So enjoyable meaning that you find some sort of pleasure in doing it, because if you have the best workout routine or the best diet, but you can't stick to it for more than a week or two, then it's not going to be something sustainable. So while I use the specific progressive and enjoyable specifically for fitness, I think it kind of applies to this question and to martial arts as well. Especially if we've talked about before, the doing something over a long period of time is going to give you the skills you need to actually do them effectively. And without that time component, a lot of people get nowhere close to their actual potential. So that enjoyable helps you get closer to that potential.
I like that in 3s, and that's just a great way to break it down. Specific, progressive, enjoyable. You touched on all the points there.
Yeah.
Back to what Patrick said about and what you said too, Evan, about being specific. Yeah, what is your goal? It is different for combatives versus sports versus just general martial arts enjoyment. So I think combatives, if it's purely combatives, here's the dirty little combative secret and self-defense secret. It doesn't take a whole lot of time or a whole lot of material to be able to defend yourself. Like what you said, Evan, the toolbox, and then being able to deploy your tool. It's not a whole lot of stuff, and we disguise reps, we disguise training, we disguise that progressiveness by striking the air. Then we strike a focus mitt, then we strike the tie pads. Then, if there's a heavy bag around, we'll strike the heavy bag, and then we'll combine all those things. It's really not that complicated. So it doesn't require a whole lot of effort in the training. Like what Patrick said, a few minutes a day will bring you huge dividends. If you want to use combatives as a type of physical training, again, just strike those pads, work with a partner. If you don't have a partner, work with a heavy bag or a bob. if your goal is combat sports, then you know what you got to do. If it's Muay Thai or BJJ, you're just going to be in that gym all day, sometimes twice a day, and being an athlete. And then, of course, if it's just for enjoyment, 2-3 times a week, hour each time is solid. If all you can get in is twice a week, that's solid. Once a week is kind of tough to grow from. And then I don't want to discount the mental training either. The some people call it crisis rehearsal. Some people call it just focusing, mental rehearsal, those kind of things, visualization. Sometimes I'm stuck in a place, and it's kind of weird if I'm at the airport to run through katas or something like that. I'll run through it in my mind, and I found that if I can't do it in my mind, I don't know it well enough.
Yep.
And if I can run it through my mind, every hand position, foot position, then, oh, okay, I feel much comfortable. And there's been studies that show it's almost as effective. I think they did a study with basketball players. One group just visualized.
Dr. Alan Richardson, yeah, famous study.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was, just almost as effective as doing both the visualization as well as the physical training. So don't discount that. If you're stuck somewhere that you can't do it physically, like at the airport or on the plane or wherever, take a few deep breaths, get into your mind's eye, and run through those reps, because you're still building those neurons, the muscle memory between your mind and your body when you're doing that.
Yeah, I was literally going to say the same thing. Cite the same study, Dr. Alan Richardson basketball study where they basically practice free throws. They had one group not think about it and not practice. One group just thought about it, essentially did visualization. The other group practiced, and the group that just thought about it almost did as well in the second set of free throw shoots as the group that actually practiced. So it works. It's legitimate science. There's something called mirror neurons. Your brain fires like you're doing the activity when you are actually thinking about it. Now, for a lot of sports people, they'll be like, well, I envision myself on the podium. It's like, well, did you envision yourself running the race, or you just envision the end state? Like, oh, I just envision the end state. It's like, well, no, that's not good. You need to envision yourself doing the work so you get the repetition, the mental repetitions of doing the work. It's like I'm just picturing myself sitting around with my black belt on. It's like, well, no, that's not good. You got to do the work, man. Like, you got to visualize the arm bar. You got to visualize passing the guard. You got to visualize the strikes.
Right.
When me and my wife used to go grocery shopping, I used to like mentally rehearse katas, like walking around the grocery store. And so I wouldn't do like the full movements, but I would do like minor arm movements. And my wife is like, are you seriously doing this right now? And it's like, you're dragging me to the grocery store. I'm going to practice a little bit. So like I'm making like tiny hand movements and like adjusting my body, and like I'm rotating into like random directions as we're walking through the grocery store. And it worked though. I mean, it just running through it in that situation, or a lot of times when I'm laying down for bed and if I can't fall asleep, whatever I'm working on, whether Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or some knife art, I'll run through the techniques in my head in order and like to make sure I touch all the steps. And not only do I get the techniques better, but I usually don't finish. I usually don't, let's say counting sheep, I usually don't finish all the techniques before I fall asleep. It puts me to sleep pretty quick. So
right. And do you do those body jerks sometimes?
not as much when I'm sleeping, but occasionally, yeah. Where your brain doesn't realize you're fully asleep, or thinks you're fully asleep before it truly is. So
yeah, I think that's an underutilized tool.
100%. Yeah.
Some people ask, how often do you train? I literally train every day, but not physically sometimes. Again, sometimes I'm traveling or I'm just in a place where I can't physically train. I'll mentally train, and it helps. It definitely helps. I've used it for every art, including Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where it's tough. It's tough trying to imagine exactly where your limb goes in relationship to your partner's limbs. And but if you don't really you can't do that, you don't fully understand the technique.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, we're gonna keep cruising. Uh, this one's from Sigmund Tony, who I just saw ref his first MMA fight, which is kind of another cool way
Yeah,
to
go
get involved.
Sigmund.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was just a really cool way to kind of if stay involved in combat sports and martial arts and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
and you get the best seat in the house.
that's true. That's gotta be awesome, being like right in there. Yeah.
Yes.
So he had a two-part question. I think we kind of answered this, so we're gonna answer it very briefly just to make sure we answer his question. So I'm gonna send this one over to Patrick. It says, I know Conrad and Patrick are cousins, but how did they become training partners, Tiga Tactics co-founders? Did they grow up in the same area? So just in a couple sentences, and then we'll keep on cruising here.
Sure, yeah, we are cousins. He's my older cousin. We grew up separate, actually, completely different countries. I was born and raised in Canada, and Conrad grew up in Denver, Colorado. But we were really close, so we visit each other often. And I always looked up to him because obviously he's my older cousin, but also because he was a martial artist, and he was always a black belt for as long as I knew, and I wanted to be like that. And so this was back in the day when we would write letters to each other, and he would kind of guide me on my path as a martial artist. And just over time, we just every time we'd meet, we talk about martial arts and how can we do this? And he would always try to convince me to open up my own dojo and stuff like that. And eventually, it just kind of clicked. Like, hey, we kind of combine all our 60+ years of knowledge, and it just made sense that we want to help people, we want to empower people. We want them to be able to protect themselves and their families, and we have the skills, the knowledge, and the research to do it, and it just kind of became a natural fit.
Nice. Good stuff. And then the second part of his question, which I think we also kind of answered, it was, how did you, Evan, get involved with Tiga Tactics? Long story short, I got an email from Black Belt Magazine talking about EDC Karambit online course. I thought it was cool. Checked it out. I liked it. Then I started exploring the other stuff Tiga Tactics had, like that stuff. Then I saw they were doing a seminar near my brother-in-law's place, so decided to go to the seminar. Essentially took their flagship courses, decided to become an instructor through Tiga Tactics, which again, if anyone's interested in that, I'll drop all the links down below. You can go explore those options. And met Conrad and Patrick in person. I got along with them. They seemed to get along with me, and I just kind of attached myself to the two of them. And yeah, and just maintained a connection through digitally primarily, but then the kind of seeing each other once a year. And yeah, I like the brand. I believe in what they stand for. I believe in their techniques and their tactics, and I think it is a good resource for anyone from experienced martial artists to beginners looking to understand the basics of self-protection.
Little does Evan know is that we actually attached ourselves to you. we're like, wait, for people who don't know, who haven't listened to this before, Evan is a true badass. He's a special forces soldier. He's an obstacle course champion, obstacle course racing champion, and all around a good human being. And we were like, we want to associate with this man.
Oh, I appreciate it. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So honored to have you along for the ride, Evan.
all right, let's jump over to the final question. So Roderick Stevens said, first of all, thank you for this exclamation point. Secondly, what has been both Patrick and Conrad's biggest challenge to date with Tiga Tactics, and how have you overcome that challenge? So a little bit more of possibly a business question, or possibly a self-defense, self-protection question. I'll let either one of you take that and decide which direction you want to go with it.
I think I'll start real quick, and it's just, how do we condense all this knowledge to make it relatable and approachable for the average person to learn how to defend themselves? So Conrad can dive into that, but I think that was the biggest challenge.
Oh yeah, my agenda simply is to hopefully inspire and empower people to train some type of martial arts. Whether you want to train Tiga Tactics combatives, or you want to train at your local YMCA, or join a school close by, that's my whole goal, is just to empower people to explore martial arts. If you're currently doing martial arts, keep doing it. if you're kind of half-assing it, let's get back into the gym. Let's improve our bodies, improve our minds, become a better person of who we can be. And if you're undecided and you're not training right now, take that plunge. Take that plunge. It'll be the best thing you ever do for yourself. If you bring your family with you, it's one of the best things you can do for your kids as well too. So that's my whole agenda, and that's my biggest challenge. Just try to motivate and empower others to become a better version of themselves through this vehicle we call martial arts.
Gotcha. So I'm kind of curious also as a more of a business related question. If anyone wants to answer it from that is right, because I have my own kind of fitness business, Strength and Speed. That's where I sell my books and obstacle course racing accoutrement from. So I'm kind of curious as from a business perspective, like what do you feel like your biggest challenge has been? It's been, coming up with online courses, develop shooting videos, marketing, maintaining a presence on social media, whatever it may be.
Patrick, you want to go first?
Yeah, no, I think it kind of ties into what Conrad said before, which is, we have all this knowledge. We want to pass that down to other people. We want to empower them so they can protect themselves. So how do we do that, and what do people want? That to me has been, in my opinion, the biggest challenge of the business, because we put up courses, but is that what people want to study? And what we found is that there's so many different reasons why people train with us. And so how do we figure out what they want from their training and then deliver that to them? Largely because there's so many different, we've been very fortunate to train all kinds of people, different ethnicities, different ages, different locations. We have students in the UK, in India. And how do you empower those people when they are all seeking different training modules, I guess, or different purposes for their training? And for us, that's probably the hardest challenge, because we want to empower them. We want to give this knowledge, pass it down. I remember when I was a teen, and I just started Northern Shaolin. He said one of the greatest things that a teacher wants is to pass down their knowledge, because nobody wants to die with all that training and have it go nowhere. Nobody wants to die with their knowledge. This is not like those old Chinese kung fu movies where it's like it's all secret. It's written in a book and like no one can have it except my top student. No, we're the exact opposite. We want to give as much as possible. And how do you deliver that? And in what form? Do they want online classes? Do they want to meet in person? Do they want to do Zoom classes? Do they like more snippets of like YouTube or social media? So that to us is that, from a business standpoint, the hardest to give. And I guess, if Evan, for you with obstacle course racing, you can give them so much. The experience, the technique, the training, the nutrition, the diet, the gloves, the shoes. Like, where do you go, and what's the most popular thing to give them?
Yeah. No, I you were saying all these things, and sometimes what people want is not necessarily what they need. So that's like on the fitness side, sometimes I deal with that challenge where it's like, I know you want this. Like, I know you want these magical mittens that keep your hand warm, but like what you need is more mindset training, which you're going to get from my book, which is a fraction of the price. And they're like, no, I want the $60 mittens. And you're like, take the $60 mittens, man. Like, take it. Like honestly, that's actually better for me. But right. I really think you should buy the book too. Yeah. Like the book, because it's again the pyramid of self-protection, mindset, skill set, tool set, right? Like they need the mindset is what they need the most, but they want the tool set. So I offer both, and most of them just go with the tool set. But yeah, it's been a challenge for giving people what they need versus what they want, trying to do both, and trying to maintain a business model through that. But yeah. And then just being persistent, right? I think for, I think a lot of people who try to launch podcasts and blogs and websites, they're super excited for a very short period in the last couple months. And then it's just kind of, and it powers down. And, from the obstacle course racing side, most podcasts last a year or two, and then that's it. So,
well, that's a great lesson in life in general. It goes back to what we said about training. Like the only reason why well, I shouldn't say the only reason why Conrad has, 10, 12, 13 black belts or the equivalent of advanced instructor certifications is not because of his passion, because that can fluctuate. It's discipline. It's just being
Yeah.
persistent and doing it literally every day, like you said, whether that's training in his mind or not. But it's that persistence. So you can apply those martial arts lessons to business and to obstacle course racing, to painting, anything really.
There's a great meme online of some old guy running some like 80-year-old running like a 5K race,
Mhm.
and like with his time, and it's just like, well, what's your excuse? And someone in the comments is like, he had more time to train, as the response. It's like, yeah, it's true, but like also, yeah, kind of funny. So,
That's
all
great.
right, any other final thoughts? I think we've been talking for a while, so we'll kind of start wrapping things up.
No, I would just say thank you to everybody who asked questions on Team Tiga Tactics, which is our private online group. And if you want to be a part of that, you can train with us. You can enroll into one of our online courses. It's kind of something special where we can kind of meet each other without having to physically fly and meet in one location. So it's kind of a cool little community. We've got tons of different people on there with all kinds of backgrounds and skill levels, and I'm not talking just martial arts. I'm talking about like life skills as well. There's just some really cool people there. So please join us if you can.
Yeah, and
Yeah, thanks for I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I like that the group is small but not too small and not too big. I found with a lot of large Facebook groups, when the group gets too large, when it starts getting to like thousands of people, you ask a question and it's like, here's 30 different answers that all say something different. You're like, what
Right.
the, like, this is a wasted time. Why did I even ask?
Right.
A third of the answers are good, a third of the answers are like okay, and then a third of the answers are like legitimately bad advice.
Right.
So the Tiga Tactics group is still small, where you get actually good advice in there if you're asking questions.
Absolutely. And I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining us on our path here. Hopefully we'll meet up in person if we haven't already done so. And if we have met in person, hopefully we'll see you again soon.
All right, sounds good. Again, check the show notes down below. Make sure you're checking for upcoming seminars and upcoming digital seminars. Is that what I want to call it? What's the term I use here?
Webinars, I believe.
Webinars. Thank you. Check for those too, and we will see you guys in the next episode.